Okay, sit down, it's almost over. Trying to encourage you. It's almost over. At least for today. Starts over again tomorrow. This is, I don't know how, I guess you've done this before just like this, but this is one of my favorite setting to do things like this, where you got time to talk and think about it and listen, and then you got time to go and take refreshments and fellowship. The best of two worlds. In fact, I've had several people through the years say that the best part they liked about my seminars was recess and refreshments. So, and Diane and her crew have done a great job today. They lay out a nice cafeteria out there. And I know, yeah, let's give them some hand. That's right, that's a good idea. I tell you, because without that, what I'm doing would be unendurable. So we really appreciate that, and it's like everything you do with a crowd. Somebody's got to pay the price. I tell preachers, if you're going to get up and preach, for heaven's sakes, figure out what you want to say before you get up there. I had an intern one time that he said, he preached, he thought he was doing real good, and I said, well, you do good, but I said, you spend the first 10 minutes looking for your sermon. And I said, that's kind of weary. Why don't you figure out before you get up there what you want to say? And he said, well, I wasn't aware of that. I said, listen to your tapes. So he did, and of course he said, man, I was all over the place, wasn't I? Yeah, that's right. You've got to figure it out. And when we're doing what we're doing and we've got a good feel for it, it just makes all the difference in the world. This is a fun thing. I've gone to lectures, where you sit there and you think, if I had to sit here 5 more minutes, I'm going to die right here. I'm so tired. And because they don't let you get up, they don't let you laugh, they don't let you do anything. It's all heavy stuff. Well, we're very complicated people, frankly, all of us. And you can't always get the answers to everything in life, particularly if you try to get it all in one place. But sometimes God gives you a lot of questions and gives you the place to find them all. At home, we have a funeral home that's called Restland, where they bury people in the cemetery. And their motto is one call does all. You go out there, you can get the flowers, you can get the caskets, you can get embalming, you can be buried, the plot and everything. One call does all. So we kind of like one call does all in a lot of things in life. And so we need to ask ourselves, where do you get all the things that you're looking for, and you find them all in the same place? That's really pretty clever. How clever of God that he figured that out. And yet I think he did. For instance, when you're looking for love and approval and fellowship and enough energy to keep you going, God said, I've got a great idea. Let's create marriage. Let's get a man and a woman tied together with a mutual vow as to what they will do today and tomorrow and for the rest of their lives. And so we said, until death do you part. And the world came along and said, well, you know what? We got a better idea. We got a lot better idea. Why don't we just do away with marriage? And let's, as the custom is today, why don't we live together for a while? Well, that's like going down to the car place and saying, I want to buy a car, but I want to drive it around the block a few times first. Well, you think that sounds good for marriage. It doesn't work that way. Can you imagine the way people are doing that? They say, well, we're just going to move in together. Well, you know, I'm beginning to kind of like you, so why don't we just move in together? And we're not making promises, we're not going to the courthouse, we're not going to sign anything. We're going to be free and open, and it's going to be more real than marriage. Of course, one day you may come home from work and I won't be here. I'll be gone. Or he goes to work one day and doesn't come home. Well, what's going on? Well, I never promised you a rose garden. I didn't say I was going to be around. We just said, let's move in together and see how it works out. Well, I've been trying that for a good while. It's sure not improving marriages any, I guarantee you. And what you find is the things they've substituted are really ridiculous, such as one man marries another man, one woman marries another woman, and it doesn't quite measure up to one man, one woman situation, because those two supplement each other. And father usually gives kids what they need, which is a little bit of toughness, and mother gives them a little bit of tenderness, and toughness and tenderness go together and they average out pretty nicely. But God said, when you're looking for certain things like love, affection, importance, whatever, he said, you can't beat marriage. That's my best thought. And a lot of people forget that. They think that somebody else made it up, but God made that up. And he said, this is the way it should be. Then you say, well, you got to have some meaning in life and some purpose. And he said, how about you want to make a name for yourself? You want to live forever, so to speak? You want to make a mark? Have children. Why? Well, because children are the ultimate. There he goes. There's the boy. There's the girl. And your name goes with them, and your life goes with them. And people look at them and say, he's the spitting image of his dad. And so you have, to some extent, become immortal right here on earth because you've kept the lineage going. God said, that's what you want. And when you get those kids, he said, I think that the children, Paul says, the children ought to obey. But he says, the father, don't provoke your children to wrath. Bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. And so you train and discipline, yet you do it lovingly. And so all of a sudden you're fashioning this survivor. See, because they're going to survive you. And so you're not the end of the line. You are just the beginning of the line, and they are the next ones up. And the next thing you know, you've got not just children, you've got grandchildren. Then you have great-grandchildren. And somewhere along in there, you kind of figure out what you should have done when you were a parent. It's not easy. But the blessed thing about it, when you get grandchildren, great-grandchildren, you just love them and enjoy them and send them home to Mama and Daddy. Said, fix whatever I messed up. It's yours. This is yours. But it is a way of becoming immortal, in a way. And there's a pride. When God said, this is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased, you listen to him. He was like a proud father saying that. And you never get over being proud of what your kids do and what they do well. And when that happens, you have to kind of keep a check rein on it. For everybody says, the fellow said, have I told you about my grandchildren? He said, no, you haven't, and I appreciate it. So it's always difficult to constrain yourself, but the husband and wife, the marriage gives husbands and wives a security and a freedom and an expectation that none of these other things, this palimony they used to call it, palimony, which is that's like alimony, except your pal, who was not your wife or husband, has to pay it. And the Hollywood people found out that wasn't much fun. They thought we might as well have gotten married if we're going to get that messed up. They're going to take my money away from me. So God said the husband and wife is the way to kind of come to your fullest achievement, the fullest accomplishment. Then children are added to give you a lineage that goes down through the ages, and you may not live to see your great-grandchildren or great-great-grandchildren, but it's kind of like the woman that had a birthday and she was 100 years old. So they had a big party, and a reporter came out and said, well, you know, you lived 100 years. What's the secret? And she told him what the secret was. And so when he finished, he said, well, this was really nice. He said, shall we do this again next year? Can we? And she looked at him. She said, I don't see why not. You look pretty healthy to me. So it's just, it's there. It goes on. It goes on. So God said, oh. Then he says, here's what I've really got in mind for you. When you start the marriage, you toil together to survive physically. And when you seek status in society, at least you have status at home. If they say you're a failure, she says you aren't. They say she's a failure, he says you aren't. You tend to believe the one that lives there close. And if you suffer poverty together, that bonds you. And if you suffer triumph together over money, that makes you happy. And the whole thing, this thing created called the family, that the husband, the wife, the children, the extended, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren, all of that is a family, and God's got an affinity for families. He started with Abraham, and he said, and you and your family, you know, are going to do for me. And then he got Jacob, and he said, Jacob, you're going to have those 12 sons and that one daughter, and you're going to be the family of Israel. Of course, it's like the little boy said. He asked his dad, he said, you know, he said when Israel left Egypt, children of Israel, the ones that went through the Red Sea, weren't they? And they said, yeah. He said, well, when they sinned out there in the wilderness, it was the children of Israel did that, wasn't it? They, yes. Well, when they got ready to go in, some of them wouldn't go in. That was the children of Israel, wasn't it? Yeah. But some of the children of Israel went in, yeah. He said, I just got one question. He said, did the adults not ever do anything in Israel? Was it always the children? And the truth is, we are children all of our lives. And we're God's children. And he said, what you want to get is you want to get this together and be everything basically you need on earth is going to come out of this family. Then he has another little trick for us. And that is, when you get to the end of the earth, that's not the end of it. And that's not the most important family, although it's important. So you want to always think about your family. And as one man wrote his will, and of course when he died, they read the will in the lawyer's office, and he said, I'm going to give my wife $1 million, tax already paid. And they said, oh, what a wonderful man. And I'm going to give each of my daughters $500,000. They said, oh, Papa, you're wonderful, wonderful. And then the lawyer read, it said, and to Uncle Henry, who lived at our house rent-free for 30 years, who never paid a dime for groceries or anything else, who drank all my whiskey and smoked all my cigars. To Uncle Henry, who said I would never remember him in my will. Hello, Henry. So, this family has all these things going, and God says, here's my answer. This is how you do it. And we've got a book, and we're supposed to read the instructions. But I don't know about you, but at least I started out thinking I didn't need to read the instructions of anything that I put together. One year when our boy was just a little boy, we bought him one of these kiddie cars, that you get in and you pedal. And so we got the instructions out, and the Lord said, you want the instructions? No, I can tell what you're looking at this, how to put this together. That's not a problem. So I put it together. They got right down to the end. I said, now I've got to put the steering mechanism in there. I don't know how to get it in. It won't go this way, it won't go that way, come here, without. Got out the instructions. It said, caution, you must install the assembly for the steering first, or you cannot get it in. It is after midnight, before Christmas morning, and I have to take the whole thing apart again because I didn't read the instructions. So God said, here's the plan, here's the idea. And people say, well, I'm not going along with that. Well, you're going to find that at the end, it doesn't work. So what we're really thinking about is not just this life, but we're thinking about another life. And God said, to just about everybody he ever had dealings with, you're my family. He said to Abraham, I'm going to put you out there because I know you're going to command your family after you. He said to Adam, here's what I want you to do with your family. He calls the temple in the book of Psalms, David calls it, I'd rather be a doorkeeper in the house of God than to dwell in the tents of wickedness. So the temple where they assembled was God's house. And in Ephesians 2, he said, this was built upon the foundation of the prophets and the apostles. It's the household of God. And then Peter said, if judgment begin first at us, then the household of God, where shall the sinner appear? So he said, well, we're just a household. We're God's family. And we have kind of made everything in our world to be secular. And if you remember the first time the movie Star Wars, if you saw that, it was kind of a special thing then. Star Wars came out, and remember they had the thing in there where they would say, may the force be with you. They didn't want to say God, so may the force be with you. So God to some people, is a cosmic force field. And they don't fall in love with a cosmic force field. But when I say church, it is so easy for people to think institution and think building and to think hierarchy and authority and all that. And that is not it. This is why people have said in our day, Jesus yes, the church no. Well, that's as schizophrenic as anything you can say. You can't have Jesus without the church, because the church was his body and he appointed it that way and he died for it. And he said, when you take me, you take this church I built. Now, do we do a bad thing sometimes of, representing it? Yeah, we do. But we expected too much in the first place. People are people. I talk to people that will talk about church where they are, and they say, "Oh man, I'm telling you, it's so bad. These people do this and these people do that." And I said, "Look, there's no magic wiffle dust that was sprinkled on them when they became leader. They're people. They're people, just like you. So cut them some slack. Treat them." And that's why Paul says, he said, "Rebuke not an elder, but entreat him as a father." And I heard a story recently about a fellow that just jumped all over an eldership and just unfairly just ripped him up. And I told him, I said, if I had been there, I said, "Is this why you talk to your father?" He's a fairly young man. "Is this why you talk to your father?" "Well, no, I don't talk to him like that." "Well, then what do you do? The scripture says this is what you ought to do." "Well, I just don't like that." I said, "That's beside the point. It says do this. Why are you not doing that? Or if you are, explain to me how you are." "Well, no, I'm not doing that." "Well, what should you do?" "Well, it becomes obvious. But there's a family we have here, and there's a family we have here that goes beyond the sky. And that's exactly why we need not to think of the church as an institution. We need not to think of the church as a hierarchy. We should not think of the church as a bunch of people in authority and a bunch of other people who don't have any authority. Instead, we should do the way God created it and described it. We're a family. You say, "Well, I don't know how we can be a family. Some of the folks get on my nerves." Really? What a surprise. There was a famous evangelist some years ago, and this young man came to him and he said, "Sir," he said, "I would wonder if you'd let me have your daughter's hand in marriage." And he said, "No." He said, "What?" He said, You're not going to let me have, she's not going to let her marry me?" "No." And he said, he was baffled. He said, "Well, why not?" He said, "You can't live with her." He said, but I thought she was a Christian." He said, "She is. But I got to tell you something, son. There are people the Lord can live with that you can't." And that's true. That's why I love to give Taylor Johnson temperament analysis to people who are getting married. So let's find out how much alike and how different you are. And they say, "Oh, we're pretty much just alike." I said, "No, you're not. Let's do the test." And they look at it and say, "We're about alike." I said, "Yeah, you're just 50 points difference on a scale of 100 from who she is." "Well, really? I thought she did." Yeah, but that's not what that may be what she does, that's not what she's feeling." "Well, I didn't know that." I said, "That's why we're taking this. I want you to see that. You can make a decision." They said, "Well, can I get married if we fail the test?" I said, "This test, it's not a pass-fail. It's a watch out. Watch out test. Watch out, here she comes." And watch out, he's just like this. You just haven't paid attention. "Oh, well, okay." But what that says is, even in family, it's tough sometimes to get along. But we can do it. We can do it. Every family has its black sheep that do weird things. And I had one in mind that was always famously stuck in my mind. My mother had a sister, and she married 3 times, and she quit after the 3rd one because we said they were getting worse, every one she married. And they figured she couldn't stand the fourth one because the third one was terrible. And he was the kind of guy that'd come in and sit down at a family reunion, and when he sat down in the room and started talking, the room would clear out. Everybody'd leave and go to the next room. And then when they'd all be gone, he'd get up and come in there, and he'd leave to that one out. So you think, this guy's in our family? Yeah. Well, he's kind of one of our beloved memories now, you know. We just laugh and remember how he was. And he was the one who helped us hunt Easter eggs and hide Easter eggs one year. And we were all going to hide these. He said, I'll show you how to fix those Easter eggs and how to hide them. Had a bucket of them. He just reached over, had a field right north of the house, big tall broom weeds, and he stood there and probably threw 100 things as far as he could throw them, 100 of those eggs. We didn't find half of them because Henry decided he'd hide them. Well, you know, what do you do with a guy like that? Well, you go crazy or you get used to him, you know. But you figure out a way to deal with him. And so it's a family is a family, but it's not perfect, but God's family on earth and God's family now, right now, and God's family in heaven is going to be filled with people just like us. And that's the interesting thing. He says, I know what you want, and I know what you need. It's all right here in the family. And that is the summary of everything we've talked about all day. Been a great audience. I love an audience that listens. And my wife sometimes says, well, you talk too long. I said, it's their fault. They wouldn't quit listening.